Mass, pipes and drums! By the center! Quick! March!
Never gets old. Never gets old. Ladies and gentlemen, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. It is a great day in the Midwest Great Lakes region that we both share happily. Is all your snow melted, Kennedy?
Yeah, there was that Chinook that came through. They'll probably call it global warming, but it was a western storm followed by western winds, which happens not all the time here, but it happens.
I was very happy with White Christmas Day. Now it's the 10th day of Christmas.
10th day. Yeah,
10th. The 10th day of Christmas today. I was very happy about the White Christmas because where I am in Michigan, I think there is global warming because there's been less White Christmases in my lifetime. It's been sad. So there's been too much global warming in my area, at least.
Okay. We had so much, we actually couldn't make it to Christmas Mass. We were snowed in my village.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. It was, you know what? That was funny. During lockdown, by the way, does everybody like my new setup? I have a new studio.
I like the black.
So,
yeah, I like it a lot.
Thanks. It's an acoustically treated room. So this is actually all just like black foam behind me, but I got this camera with like the autofocus and the lights. And anyway, this is my it's a multi-purpose room, office, audiobook recording, YouTube. Anyway, it was the wind. We had couple 3 feet, 4 feet of snow. It was a lot of snow. But snow is snow. We're used to that, but it was the wind. I live out in a rural area, as you'll see, Tim, when you come visit in February, and, it's all just fields. So when there's it was ground blizzards, right? Even when the snow stopped, I couldn't drive. I tried to test it Christmas Eve, and I tried to drive 5 minutes from my house. I got about 2.5 minutes onto the road, and I thought I wasn't going to get home. Christmas Eve at midnight, so like Christmas Day, chronologically, our heat went out at 1 a.m, and it was minus 25 out. So I woke up. We woke up in the morning, and the snow had calmed down a little bit, but it was 55 degrees Fahrenheit in our house. So we have radiators, like boiler heating. And so thankfully there was a gentleman, local mechanical company, was on call for Christmas Day, and he was able to come fix it. We gave him a ton of Christmas treats, and I'm sure he got paid time and a half. He's a local boy. He was happy to do it.
Well, oh man.
Yeah. But then what we did, though, because we looked at the forecast, we knew it was probably going to be unlikely to get out of our village until the 26th. So we did a vigil at midnight as a family in our living room. Candles and statues and manger scene, and we read the readings and said some prayers and sang some hymns, and it was beautiful. It's funny, during lockdown, I couldn't stand the idea that I had to do mass, not replace, but you know what I'm saying, do something religious service at home, because of the reasons were stupid. But this one, it was kind of like, hey, what are we going to do? We're snowed in, and it's Christmas Eve, and it's still Christmas, so it was an interesting time.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Wow. That'll be definitely a Christmas to remember for your kids.
That's right.
Yeah. One year when we were snowed in, we had this vigil for with the family. So what does the whole family do? Like, what are some traditions that your kids like for Christmas, 12 Days of Christmas, Epiphany, anything at all? What do you guys do?
Yeah. So we are Santa respecters. I know some people are, some people aren't. It is what it is. My mom, she tries to put a little bit of Befana in there, La Befana. We do a Saint Nicholas thing in December, but not like we don't make a big deal. It's just Saint Nicholas Day, so they get little gifts in their shoes, just sort of for fun. Santa Christmas Day. So we've been going to midnight mass for years now. So usually that's a thing. Throughout the month of December, there's that little thing, that little good deed manger. You put little baby Jesus in it, fill it with straw, for every good deed.
Oh yeah, we do that too. Yeah, my kids love that.
Yeah, and it's a mad dash of like 100 good deeds the last 3 days before Christmas, right? To fill it up. And we do that. We pray the rosary with the Advent candles lit each week, so we light them and whatever. And then as far as the Christmas season, as soon as Christmas comes, usually we would go to mass a lot if we could make it. We couldn't make it to mass till Friday last week. But we do a lot of just feasting. We just do a lot of feasting, and then we will do on Epiphany like a big, almost like a second Christmas Day, almost. Like with gifts and stuff. Yeah. What about you guys?
That's awesome. We actually finished up the good deed manger early this year, which was good. But at one point, my son actually took all of the hay and put it in the manger. So he was like, but yeah, they love that. It was great. This year we did, like Christmas Eve, we brought the baby Jesus to the manger, sang Joy to the World. I read the Midnight Mass Roman Martyrology announcement. I love that. It's like my favorite little liturgical ditty. But we've struggled to keep the 12 days of Christmas, find a way to do 12 days of feasting. And this year we finally found something that really worked. Like in past year we did, one year we bought the kids like 12 books, and they opened a book every day. But that was kind of a bummer. Like they didn't even get into that, because they're all about their like trucks and stuff, like, you know. So what we did this year, which was good, it worked, was that we had all our candy canes on the tree, and we waited until Christmas to begin eating the candy canes. So then every day of Christmas, of the 12 days of Christmas, they get to eat one candy cane. So they get us Christmas candy cane every day. And then we also did, we started doing just a candlelit dinner every night. So every night we would just eat dinner. The kids just love candlelight dinner. It's like you can eat a frozen pizza with candlelight. They'll love it. Because kids love fire. It's just fun. And the Liturgy of the Home calendar has been awesome for this too, because my kids love the Muppet 12 Days of Christmas from the Muppet Christmas album. Yeah. Because it has like all the voices with every day of Christmas has a different voice. It's hilarious. And that's with John Denver. He's like a John Denver Muppet album for Christmas. So my kids know the 12 Days of Christmas song really well, and they sing it. And with the Liturgy of the Home calendar, it's been so fantastic because they have all the 12 Days of Christmas marked with all the different 10 Lords of Leaping and everybody. And then they have all the little Catholic symbols that go with the numbers, like 10 Commandments, the 9 choirs of angels, the 8 Beatitudes, etc. Yeah. So every day, my 4-year-old has been all about the next day of Christmas. What does the number mean? And then you can give them a little search, because they printed a little key with the Liturgy of the Home calendar. So then you give them this little key to, can you find the 9 choirs of angels? Can you find the Beatitudes? And then they got to look on the calendar, find the number. And then it's obviously a catechetical opportunity. So that's been sweet. We've really enjoyed that. And watching a lot of Christmas movies. There's tons of great ones. We're also Santa people too. We're just kind of like, whatever. We say St. Nicholas and Santa are the same person because he is.
Yeah.
And but we don't really like. I think both of my sons have both said to me, Santa's not real, is he? I was like, well, St. Nicholas is real, but Santa doesn't have a sleigh or something. I don't know. I'm not gonna go on and on about it.
I just say to them, what do you think? I mean, sounds pretty fun. Think, just whatever. I think my 7-year-old has kind of been like, is he real? And I'm like, well, what do you think, buddy? I mean, it's pretty cool if he is. And he's just like, yeah, it's pretty cool if he is. And that's like the end of the conversation. I also forgot to say.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go on. Well, my wife's birthday is January 1st. So the year is always dedicated to her.
What was that?
My wife's birthday is the 1st, so the year is always dedicated to her, So we had a big, we always have a little bit of a fun gathering for New Year's Day with friends.
Oh, fantastic. That's excellent. Let's see. So we got Santa, and then Epiphany that's chalking the door. That's always fun, saying "We Three Kings." So that's good time. Announcement of the New Year feast days. That's fun.
Yep.
So yeah. I'm just trying to eat a ton of meat this month.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. Because I did the St. Martin's Lent this year, and I was struggling. I was struggling for that meat for Christmas. So
did you go meatless the whole time?
I wasn't entirely meatless, but it was like it was mostly meatless. So I was looking forward to the meat for Christmas. So yeah, Lent is coming. So the next time we do this show, it will be in person at the Kennedy household, because I will be traveling for the men's conference. So let's see if I can make that promo video happen. Let's see. Here we go.
Let's face it, overcoming your vice and being a man of virtue seems like an impossible hill to climb. How many times have you agonized over your sin, your shortcomings, your faults? You know that without improving as a man, your family and your soul are at risk. When our ancestors braved the wilderness and the unknown to bring the faith to our land, they could only do so because they were heroic. It is time to reclaim that heroism. It is time to reclaim traditional Catholic masculinity. Let's do something about it. Click the link in the description to be part of the Canadian Martyrs Men's Conference. Reclaim.
This is the weekend of Quinquagesima, weekend before Ash Wednesday is when this conference happens. So, Kennedy, tell us about the conference. Did you spearhead this? How did this come about?
Yeah. So it's the Canadian Martyrs Men's Conference, and it was, I guess you could say it's originally my idea, but I talked to some friends about it, and I presented it to our priests at our chapel, and we have a Holy Name Society at our chapel. Holy Name Society, kind of like Knights of Columbus, but without the insurance. A smaller, it's definitely existed. It's pretty old. I don't know if it's more or less ancient than the Knights of Columbus. I really don't know, actually. But Holy Name Societies pretty much don't exist at any Novus Ordo parishes anymore. I think there's one in Toronto or something, but ours is a traditional chapel. So the point is, the Holy Name Society it's a fraternity for men, and you basically take on a promise that you're going to defend the holy name of Christ in society, and there's a pledge that you take and various things. You attend once a month meetings where you also sort of act as custodians of the parish. Ours is non-diocesan, so ours is very much a communal affair as far as actually fixing the thing and cleaning the thing, and there's just everyone's always doing jobs to help out as much as possible to keep the costs down. But we like to plan things, so I said, hey boys, let's see if we can do a men's conference. And we did the math, we found a good location. If we get 75 people, 100 people, we more than pay for everything. Everyone breaks even. We pay a couple guys some stipends. And we've put on something that hopefully will grow year by year. There is no tradition. There's no traditional men's conference in Canada. Doesn't exist. There's a few men's conferences. I used to go to one in my old hometown, and it's fine. It's a basic sort of diocesan men's conference thing where someone comes and does a few talks, and you're told men are really great and be a good Catholic and then go home, and that's fine. But I just thought, the secular world is really jumping on the whole men's movement thing. I mean, people are obsessed with like Andrew Tate and all these characters, and they're far from perfect. So why don't we give people the fullness of the truth when it comes to masculinity and do a real traditional Catholic men's conference? And our priests were all for it. It's not officially an SSPX event. It's an event put on by the Holy Name Society. And our priests are graciously serving the event for us. So there will be confessions. There will be at least 3 priests there at this point from our chapel. 2 of them are giving talks. It's going to be great. It's one full day. It's on the 18th of February. But we want to pack as much as possible. So it's really, it's encouraged that people kind of make it a weekend. So you come down the Friday. It's about an hour and a half in from the border at Port Huron, so it's not too far from the border. There's a nice hotel to stay at, very affordable. It's like $90 a night American. You can share it with somebody, and it's nothing. Oh, nice. Yeah. 3 meals the next day. Lots of social time. There will be some cigars. We got a sponsor to help us pay for some cigars. If you want one, you can have one. So it's a full day. It's like, we start at 8 a.m. with Mass at the chapel, which is about 10 minutes down the road, 15 minutes down the road from the hotel. And then the rest of the day we're at the hotel, and it's just like 5 or 6 talks, lots of friendship. We're going to have some door prizes and some raffles and just kind of keep it lively. And then in the evening, for guys who are sticking around, we are going to have some drinks and hang out and all that kind of stuff. We got the hotel conference room till 11 o'clock. And then for guys that have to skip out, you can go home, but it should be fun.
Great. This will be fantastic. I'm really excited to be there. I haven't been to Canada in many years, too long. I've always, ever since I learned about the Canadian martyrs, I've had a great devotion and love for the Canadian martyrs. I'm reading a book. I decided to finish this book that I had started about them to prepare myself for this conference. It's my knowledge, I don't think that there exists a sort of a traditional men's conference anywhere.
Yeah, at all, really, right?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if it's somewhere, but I think dedicating this to the Canadian martyrs is fantastic. And this was the Canadian martyrs feature heavily in your book too.
Yeah,
there's the section on that where you talk about them. And any thoughts on the aspect of the Canadian martyrs? Seeing them at the page.
Sorry for the coughing. I had one of those holiday colds. Listen, this specifically my country is a Catholic country historically. I mean, this was a French, actually when the British got here, they were still Catholic. It was before, it was early 1500s. And they planted a flag, a crucifix, a big wooden cross on Canadian soil when they were still Catholic. It was not Protestant England that got here first. And the French got here very early as well, of course. And the Vikings got to Vinland in the around 1000, and they were Catholic. Leif Erikson, right? Leif Erikson? Yeah. And, they were there for about 200 years. And the reason they called it Vinland is because global warming from all the fossil fuels was at an all-time high then. And they were able to grow traditionally European crops in Greenland, including vines, Vinland. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they used that wine to celebrate Mass, because they did bring priests with them. Everyone brought priests with them. You didn't go anywhere without a priest when you were a Catholic back in the day. You need your sacraments. You're going to die, for goodness sake, on the open seas. So, people say this is not the flex on my American friends, but they say the first mass was by the Spanish. Was it Florida or North Carolina, wherever it was?
Yeah, we had this debate before, but yeah,
it's got to be the Vikings, man. This is the nation of Catholic Viking traditional mass. I'm sticking to it. Anyway, so it's a glorious history. Not just Quebec, even in the West, Alberta. On their coat of arms for their flag, it's Bishop Grandin, I think. Anyway, there's some snowshoes on the coat of arms for Alberta, and people just think it's like generic snowshoes. It's not. It's actually an homage to the priest who basically built the province and negotiated between the different native tribes and the government. And he was known for walking something like, a bazillion miles in the snow with his snowshoes. It's about this actual cleric of the church. It's deep. The Catholic history here is deep. And I think one of the reasons why Canada is such a disaster right now as far as morals and stuff is because the corruption of the best is the worst. I think it was a gloriously moral Catholic and Christian country, and it's fallen into a pit of Trudeaupian idiocy. So let's reclaim it. And the best way to reclaim it is for men to get their act together. And that's what we're here to do.
Well, as viewers know, I am a Michigander, and I have a great affinity to the whole. I mean, Michigan was French for 100 years before the Anglos arrived. So we're basically Canada here. So I definitely identify with that history. We had Bishop Berg, our own snowshoe priest, snowshoed around our upper peninsula.
Yeah.
My city was founded by Magdalene Laframboise, who was a Métis woman, half French, half Ottawa Indian. And Mackinac Island is was one of the French church there, St. Anne, is where she's buried. Right. She was a leader. Her husband was killed by another Indian, but she forgave her husband's murderer and took over the fur business that he was started with her, and then she helped to build the Catholic Church in Michigan, and she also all this. I'm just I mean, it really is a glorious history, and
it is
unfortunately something that's been threatened. Unfortunately, with the cooperation of the highest hierarchs of the Catholic Church this past summer. Yeah. So I love this, reclaiming the history, reclaiming the traditional Catholic masculinity. This is exciting. I'm really excited for this conference, to go to the conference, for the conference to grow.
Yep.
It's definitely something that's needed, obviously. And I like the cigar.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure also, Tim, that we put the link in the description to the show, because there already are. Actually, I should say we got some pretty great prizes so far. A lot of rosary companies have been sending us rosaries to give out, so that's pretty cool. But we also, also my friend Al Smith, you met Al down in Pittsburgh. He's awesome. He's probably going to watch this. He's going to do a talk. He's a Fulton Sheen aficionado, and he is giving everyone who attends the Fulton Sheen Wartime Prayer Book, which is a reprint of the prayer books given to World War II soldiers, which is super cool.
Oh, wow.
And Stations of the Cross from St. Alphonsus Liguori. He's procured a bunch of those, so everyone is going to be ready for Lent when they leave the conference. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic. Well, we got about a half hour left. We had a few people come in and out of the chat. I was thinking we could just share some comments about the passing of Pope Emeritus Benedict. Sure. Rest in peace. A few thoughts on that. If anybody wants to, so we're recording this on Telegram. It's the first time we've done a video chat. So the members of the Telegram Terror of Demons men's group have been in the chat. And so if anybody wants to make any comments, just let's see. Why don't I'll just open it up if anybody wants to make any comments or questions that we can discuss in our last half hour here. But Kennedy, What are your thoughts on Pope Benedict? Where were you when you found out news?
I think I woke up and like checked my phone and someone had, sent a message in a group chat I'm in. I think that's how I found out. Well, I have an article over at Crisis right now, and it's been trending as a top article for a few days. I kind of hit the zeitgeist with it the day before he passed away. And if I'm mistaken, I think I wrote it, A Storm is Coming. Something like The Storm is Coming, Pope Benedict dies. I wrote it the day before he died, but then I actually did it as a video essay on my channel. People can check that out. It's just easy. It's one of the last couple of videos I did. Pope Benedict's in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
And I read it in the past tense now that he has died. Change it a little bit. So Pope Benedict was a very paradoxical pope. When you read some of his, well, it's funny, take the book Faith in the Future. I've never read the whole thing. From 1969. Some of it sounds like Fulton Sheen in the 1940s. It's almost like the Antichrist is about to show up, and then some of it sounds like it could be ghost written by Teilhard de Chardin. It's very, like, some passages you go, whoa, that's a little weird. And then some of it you go, yeah, it's pretty trad, and he kind of changed a bit since then. But he's such a fascinating character because, he was like an embodiment of the zeitgeist of the church from the pre to post conciliar era. He was the last relic, if you want to call it that, of the pre-conciliar age. He was already a grown man and a priest throughout the council. He was ordained before that and formed before that. And then he was there, and he was at the heart of controversy about, the clashing of the past and the future, the whole time. He was at the heart of the new theology controversy when the one aspect of it went a little bit screwy. He was at the heart of the Lefebvre affair, negotiating with Lefebvre, but then also was the one who recognized the penalties as being lifted. He was there in 91 and actually, overturned a local bishop's ruling regarding the SSPX, which, like, never has a local bishop have his ruling overturned, especially when he's a liberal, which was fascinating. He's been in every single camp, and he's sort of been just unique in that way. So, ultimately, I believe that the hermeneutic of continuity wasn't as much of a success as he would have hoped and others would have hoped, and I understand that. However, in some ways, he was very much a champion for tradition, especially with liberating the Latin Mass. And then, I was looking at something from Bishop Ganswein today that Benedict said he was heartbroken when he read Traditionis Custodes, that suppressed the Mass. So I really think, this is sort of the crux of my article at Crisis. I really think that Benedict's presence in Rome was sort of a last, even if minor, or often ignored stopgap against the full onslaught of the agenda. That's what I think. I'm not trying to be negative, but as long as a bishop in white is there, and he sort of represents this old guard, at least to a degree, the way that the politics and the decorum work in Rome, even in modernist Rome, it's very much politics. There are people who are on Benedict's side, people on Francis' side, and so on and so forth. I think that was one of the stopgaps against how bad it could get. So I am worried. Legitimately, I'm worried that things are going to get a lot weirder regarding tradition. I don't know what that's going to look like. But if I were to venture a guess, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised now that Benedict's passed, God rest his soul, if Pope Francis resigned relatively soon. Reason being, I've got reasons for that, and then there's a stronger and deeper persecution of tradition. I think that's likely.
Yeah, I think that's very likely what you're saying. I read your article. I linked it on my 1 Peter 5 post today. it reminds me of Joseph Pierce's book, Defender of the Faith, about Benedict. And I think that his point is trying to get at the fact that he, to trads, we are not as keen on Benedict. We appreciate Benedict, obviously, but he didn't do all the things that we would have liked him to do. But I think that we should realize at the same time, when he was head of the CDF and then as Pope, he was going after a lot of the liberal heretics that were denying some of these like really basic dogmas, like, virgin birth, resurrection, really basic stuff. And that's what Joseph Pierce, I think, is getting at here. He was the defender of the faith on a lot of these basic points that we were called into question, promulgating the catechism, which, yes, I know, trads will have quibbles about the new catechism, but it's confirming all these basic dogmas that were under question. So I think he has a great legacy of defending the faith against a lot of these way out of left field liberal heretics. And the St. Gallen Mafia was basically formed to oppose Ratzinger and all of his influence in the Vatican, and to try to push forward a candidate who was going to be anti-Ratzinger. Like this power thing has been going on for decades. And there's that, I think it was Taylor Marshall shared that video of Pope Benedict going to Germany, and he was like shaking all the hands of or trying to shake the hands of the German. Have you seen this video?
Yeah, it's really creepy. Yeah.
Well, it's insane. It's like, wow, how could you disrespect just a fellow bishop, not much less the Pope? So the video itself is Pope Benedict visiting Germany, and he's just greeting the bishops, and then all the bishops are just refusing to shake his hand as he comes along. And so I think that you're right. I think it's highly likely this is going to get a lot worse. All of the liberal heretics are coming out of the woodwork with Francis. Pope Francis is not only going after trads, he's going after the Ratzigerians, and he's also going after John Paul II people. He's taking out all the John Paul II stuff, the good stuff he did with like the Pontifical Academy for Life. So I think it's all on the table now. Like every Orthodox Catholic of any stripe whatsoever who believes in the Catholic dogmas, the basics of the creed, is going to be crosshairs on you.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Frank Pavone stuff was about. Now, I'm going to make an analogy here that I don't know if people will appreciate or not, but that's whatever. Remember when Alex Jones was sort of canceled originally from Twitter and YouTube and all this kind of stuff? It was like 5 years ago or something. It was when cancel culture started becoming a thing, let's put it that way. And yeah, Alex Jones says some crazy stuff. He's probably right about a lot, but he says some crazy things. And it was easy to cancel him because, yes, he was conservative. Yes, he was right wing, but there were some unsavory aspects. Some of the things that he did weren't necessarily very serious. So the Wall Street Journal crowd and the National Review crowd and places like that could go, well, we believe in free speech, but Jones is kind of a nutter. That's kind of how they would go. And that might be true. Disrespect to anyone who likes Jones, or this isn't a comment about, I'm just saying that I get the logic of it. But the astute people said, no, it's not about Alex Jones. He's the easy one. You go after him and it's like, yeah, he's the nut job, or he's the unsavory character. But the point is that this is them showing how their MO against conservatives now, because now that they've set the precedent, anyone who could be compared to Alex Jones in any way, which is pretty broad, because he shares most positions in common with most right-wing Americans, to some degree. Well, it's like, well, he's not too different than Alex Jones. I mean, we should probably cancel him too, And Father Pavone, nice man. I met him down in Florida. He gave my baby a blessing at the airport. But very pro-life. But I also understand his legacy, his back and forth with his bishop is less than perfect. Obviously I believe there's a case for lawful disobedience. I, of course, believe that as not just a society guy, but I was reading earlier. I'm trying to understand Sedevacantism more, just honestly to be more charitable at Sedevacantist, especially given the confusion of everything. So I was reading from Pope Pius or Paul IV, anyway. I think it was Pius IV. Anyway, Cum Apostolatus, or one of those letters.
Yeah, the one where it says that no heretic can
but
from.
it even says, actually, let me just bring it up here because I do have it open, because it was really illuminating. Okay, here it is. Oh, it's Pope Julian. Sorry, Pope Julian II from Lateran. And it says, it shall be lawful for each and all of the cardinals, as well as for the clergy and the Roman people, to withdraw without penalty at any time from obedience and loyalty to the person so elected, even if he has been enthroned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as long as they remain fully committed to the faith of the Roman Church and to obedience towards a future Roman pontiff entering office in accordance with the canons. So basically, it's saying, yeah, I mean, if it seems like the Pope's bad, you can just withdraw your obedience literally until there's a new Pope. He's saying this is a principle. This is just a logical possibility is what he's saying. So of course there's a place for obedience rightly ordered, hopefully to man, but if the man is against God, then it has to be to God over man. Rare, but happens. So I'm not saying Father Pavone fits that description, and he probably should have just submitted at some points from a perspective of being a faithful priest. And I get it, heading the organization, Priest for Life, is really important. But it's funny listening to Father Pavone in his interviews. He kept saying, my vocation was for the unborn, and respectfully, the only vocation is the religious life. Or you're married. I mean, that's the only things you're called to, right? I know some people disagree. Is marriage a vocation? But anyway, the vocation is the religious life. We might use that word colloquially. My vocational pursuit is to be an educator, and there's a reality that sure there's a vocational aspect, but in the religious sense, a vocation is a religious life. But it's interesting listening to Pavone. He's a priest who was formed by the logic of the Second Vatican Council. And by the logic of the post-conciliar period, I mean, how many times did I hear this word vocation growing up? Priests coming in talking about vocations. You got vocation to the single life, a vocation to the professional world, a vocation to the priesthood. And he probably actually believes that. And then we see, because of this, he's an easy scapegoat for bringing the hammer down. And I personally believe that, Pavone is like the Alex Jones of the priesthood. I'm not saying they're comparable. I'm saying he's an easy target, because you can say, yeah, well, I get it. He's really pro-life, but he kind of made some mistakes and this was coming. It's like, well, that's possible. Although I think laicization was it's extreme.
Yeah.
But it's the precedent. And now whoever is like a Father Pavone, Father Altman, Father Maudsley, Father Haleman, all these other priests that haven't been canceled yet, I think we're going to see more of the same. That's what I believe.
Yeah, that's a good consideration, that they find somebody who has something that's debatably culpable or whatever, and that they can make an example of that person and set a precedent. The laicization was a very severe penalty for what seemed to be a rather small infraction, if it was an infraction. I hate to die on any hill regarding Pavone. I wish him the best, obviously. God be with him and his bishop. But certainly in the eyes of the faithful, this seemed to be way overblown.
Little much.
Yeah. And I think that's, God bless our priests, who are all these good priests who are towing the line with their bishop, trying to do the right thing, trying to care for their flock, trying to say the right thing. trying to preach the gospel, preach the truth and charity without being too offensive to get canceled. But then some of them just like, I've had enough. I don't care if I get canceled. This is it. Whatever. And God bless the good bishops, some of them who are willing to back up a priest who is preaching the gospel. They exist out there, believe it or not. But there are few, unfortunately. But I think, I mean, I do consider, I think that what you're describing is highly likely after Pope Benedict has already passed. The storm is going to just intensify. Let me just read this. The Ganswein. Ganswein. I don't know how you say it, but this is a quote from the recent interview. I just retweeted it on 1 Peter 5 from Matthew Hazel, who says, so Ganswein says, quote, I believe it broke Pope Benedict's heart to read Traditionis Custodes. To take this treasure of the old mass away from the people, well, I can't say I'm comfortable with that, end quote. Yeah. To me, that is an intense revelation. And he's also coming out with a book. Ganswein is coming out with a book later, which I'm sure that will be covered in the book. Okay. I think this is huge because it does reveal, Pope Benedict as the emeritus has always, more or less, pledged his obedience to Pope Francis as the new Pope, with a few significant exceptions in some ways, because I was just reading the From the Depths of Our Hearts, the book that he released with Cardinal Sarah when they were trying to question priestly celibacy, which at least was viewed as an intervention of Pope Francis's program. And I think that the revelation that this most likely broke Pope Benedict's heart, wow. I mean, I think that this helps to show what's really going on to the people of goodwill who don't realize what's going on, and they're still trying to make everything go. Go ahead.
Yep. And again, to the paradoxical nature of what Pope Benedict has said and written over the years, from Faith in the Future, 1969, he said, and so it seems certain to me that the church is facing very hard times. The real crisis has scarcely begun. We will have to count on terrific upheavals. That's part of what he said. But then it's interesting in what he said. This is where I say it was like two sides of two different types of theologians. He says this thing again that sounds very, almost Lefebvrean, right? But then he talks about the renewed church in some way that it's just hard to understand. It's very new theology-esque, it's just these two sides of the same theologian there. But I wouldn't say Pope Benedict was a traditionalist per se, but he did sincerely believe in the hermeneutic of continuity. He believed somehow that there was a way that, you could have your Novus Ordo Respecter and your traditionalist, getting along. And obviously that's true in human relationships. And it's funny, I wouldn't call that a traditionalist, but it's traditional compared to a modernist, right? It's traditional compared to a leftist. We're at the point now where, at what point does a Father Schmitz or a Bishop Barron get smacked down? I don't know. I don't know much about Bishop Barron. I used to listen to him a lot back when I was sort of reverting. He's very intelligent, obviously, and lots of commentary on all things to do with culture. But I remember him being pretty theologically conservative, at least in morals and things like that. Father Schmidt's even more so. It's going to be interesting to see because, again, when the figure of Benedict was around, there was this idea that a guy like myself and a guy like someone who is an Ascension Press presenter or something like that could kind of get together and get along. But man, not to stir up controversy, well, whatever, I don't really care. But I did a video essay on Matt Fradd's response to Benedict's death, and he was going after the people who believe Benedict was still Pope and calling them schismatics and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, man's body's barely cold. What are you doing? But again, it kind of shows like there was something that Benedict was like holding something together, and then like he's gone, and there's this release of like this emotion, and so I'm interested to see, organizations like Catholic Answers, who I want to do well. I've spoken to Christopher Check. He seems like a very nice man. I know he's very supportive of the SSPX, and I respect him greatly for that. But when Benedict was alive, you could point to some pretty traditionally minded teachings and say this is kind of part of the magisterium-ish of what we're going through right now. But now that he's gone, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do when you try to thread that needle of the diocesan conservative. I'm not really sure where to go from there.
Yeah. Well, if we got about 10 minutes left, if anybody who's in the chat wants to cut in and say anything, any questions or comments, just unmute your mic and just talk into your mic. Just start talking and we'll give you the floor for a minute. Steven, you want to say something?
Hey, gents, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, thanks for doing this, you guys. Merry Christmas and almost happy Epiphany. Yeah, so something I've been thinking about recently, and I don't know, I haven't like studied it too much in depth by any means, but I don't think there's been a lot of focus, or enough focus, I should say, around Benedict's formation of the Anglican ordinariate and what he essentially tried to kickstart in from the perspective of the reform of the reform and that liturgical kind of trying to thread the needle, as Kennedy really just spoke about, between the extremely traditional camps and the conservative but novus ordo camps, for lack of a better term. And you look at even recent moves by first off, within the USCCB, Bishop Lopes is now, I think, kind of in charge of the USCCB's liturgical group, whatever that formal title may be. Pardon me that I don't know that off the top of my head, but and then the moves that the Vatican has made in order to kind of dictate a sort of compliance by the ordinariates, particularly within like the liturgical calendar, like for example, moving feasts like the Epiphany to the Sunday in the way that the Novus Ordo recognizes it, instead of the way that's been traditionally recognized on the actual day, on Friday, of this week, for example. So I think there's a lot there that, again, I certainly haven't looked enough into. I'm interested to, and will do so as I can. But like, it just seems to be that's a focal point, perhaps, to understanding Benedict's mindset and attempted way forward, that it just doesn't seem like it's been unearthed much. So I'll listen now. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that Eric Sammons brought up in his article, that he appreciated Anglicanorum Cetibus, which I also really like. I think that what I wrote in my article was Pope Benedict really embodies a true decentralization of the papacy, in the sense of reintegrating liturgical traditions which are good and should be reintegrated, or allowing certain customs which can be reconciled with the Catholic faith in the case of the Anglican use, which, as far as I know, is a great thing. We can quibble over little things, but I feel like it's the liturgical rite itself, as described, I've never been to it myself, seems to be very good. But like many other things with Benedict, they seem to be trying to choke it. What are your thoughts, Kennedy?
I've never been to the Anglican ordinariate. And it's an interesting history because Cranmer was a bastard. He did not like read Michael Davies'
Yes.
Cranmer's Godly Order. So, but I would argue on the Orthodox side of things, there have been vehement anti-Catholics within the Orthodox sphere, but I would also say there's a strong, a deep Catholicity to the Orthodox people as individuals. And I think something similar, in reality, the Anglican Church kind of was like an Orthodox church at the beginning. It was more a matter of jurisdictional issues than anything else. Again, even with Henry VIII, he didn't get divorced. He had an unapproved annulment. People always think that the Anglican Church made divorce. It didn't actually. It actually wasn't about divorce. It was about whether or not the legitimate tribunal would recognize his marriage as invalid or whatever, and which is not un-Catholic in the sense that it's true that we do have annulments. Obviously, it spiraled out of control, and then the continental European Protestant Revolution obviously inspired lots of bad theology and whatever. But the Anglican history is very different. It's very difficult. It's very, you look at it, you read, we've all read C.S. Lewis. He's amazing. We've all read Chesterton. Chesterton wrote Orthodoxy when he was an Anglican. And he joked that he was it was 14 years until he was Catholic after he wrote Orthodoxy. And he said he joked that he was sending Catholics to the church for 14 years before he himself was one, So I don't know enough about the Sarum Rite and things like that in England. But I do think that it is possible. It's funny. Let's just back up here for a sec. If it can be said that the Anglican ordinariate, was a good idea, and it's orthodox, and there's no problems, and there's no Protestantism left in it, it's very possible that there could have been some sort of organically developed Anglo Rite, as there have been in various countries, and that'd be cool. The most egregious thing about the Novus Ordo was not the language. It's the use of the language. It's the way that it's translated. It's the volume. It's the postures. It's the actual words used, not the fact that they're in English. So maybe the Anglican ordinariate is a good thing. Personally, I'd have no problem going. I'm an Anglophile. If I was traveling and there was nothing available and there was Novus Ordo or Anglican ordinariate, I'd have no problem jumping on an ordinariate to see what was up. So, yeah, I mean, I love me some Commonwealth, so I hope that it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for watching. We're all out of time, so if anybody wants to questions or comments, feel free to send them to the Terror of Demons Men's chat. If you want to join the group, you got to be a guild member to Meaning of Catholic or a patron of the Kennedy Report. You can join the Terror of Demons Men's group. Buy the book. Come to the conference.
Yes.
Follow the link below to join us at the conference. Have a cigar with me and Kennedy. So it's going to be great.
And Joe Boca, there's rumors that Joe Boca might be there.
All right. The rumor has it. We'll see. We'll see if he's there. Cool. Well, so next month we will be broadcasting on at the conference in person. So you know what I forgot, Kennedy? We forgot, I think, the past few times to pray our prayer to Saint Joseph.
Oh yeah.
Let
me just grab my my prayer book. It's just over here. I have it.
Let me see. To you, O blessed Joseph, we have recourse in our affliction. Oh, yeah, this is to you, O blessed Joseph, we have recourse in our affliction.
Yep.
Right? That's the one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to put up St. Joseph on the screen.
Yep.
And then we'll pray this prayer so we can let's see, I'm trying to, Joseph. I had one of the Joseph paintings, patron of the Universal Church. Yeah, the one that's in the intro. If I can grab that quickly, let's see if I can get it. The one where he is over. Oh, here it is. I got it. Yeah, I think this is in the intro. Oh yeah. So I love this one because he's blessing St. Peter's, a great saint to come to not only for Catholic masculinity, but also for problems in the church.
That's right.
I love the joyful mysteries, spending some time considering when Jesus is lost in Jerusalem.
Right.
And how when they find him in the temple, Our Lady says to him, "Why have you treated us this way? Your father and I have sought thee sorrowing." And I just think about the sorrow that Our Lady must have felt when she lost Jesus, and how St. Joseph was there to be this rock. And it's like it's a perfect analogy for our situation today. You know, we could be frightful, fearful, troubled by the fact that Jesus seems to be absent in a stabilizing way in the church, in the sense of, you know, his direct rule over clerics and bishops and all this, that he should be present, but people are disobeying him. But if we come to the heart of St. Joseph, I find great solace in this depiction here, and that he's patron of the universal church. So with that, let's pray our prayer. I'll pray the first part.
Sure.
And we'll go. All right. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. To you, O blessed Joseph, we have recourse in our affliction, and having implored the help of thy thrice holy spouse, we now, with hearts filled with confidence, and earnestly beg you to take us also under your protection, by that charity with which you were united to the Immaculate Virgin Mother of God, and by that fatherly love with which you cherish the child Jesus. We beseech you, and we humbly pray that you will look down graciously upon the inheritance which Jesus Christ purchased by his blood, and will help us in our need by your power and strength.
Defend the most watchful guardian of the Holy Family, the chosen offspring of Jesus Christ. Keep from us, O most loving Father, all blight of error and corruption. Aid us from on high, most valiant defender, in this conflict with the powers of darkness. And even as of old thou didst rescue the child Jesus from the peril of his life, so now defend God's holy church from the snares of the enemy and from all adversity. Shield us ever under thy patronage, that following thy example and strengthened by thy help, we may live a holy life, die a happy death, and attain everlasting bliss in heaven. Amen.
Saint Joseph, terror of demons.
Pray for us.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.